Hello, everyone. Again, we are now down to number 4 of our top 10 list. And this question is, what is the specific purpose of 444 and 432? So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that here in just a moment after I share my screen and move myself to the bottom. Okay. So again, this is number 4, question number 4. Are there specific purposes for A432 and A444? Well, let's find out. If it will go, will it move to the next one? There we go. A432 appears to match natural tunings of what's found in nature. A432 matches numbers found in sacred geometry. The voice, your singing voice, naturally gravitates to somewhere in the A432 pitch range when singing without the aid of an instrument or a pitch pipe. And this is based on my own research. When I first started this 10 years ago, I was working in a university where there was a choir room and a band room down the hall from me, because my office was in the music education lab, which is right next to the choir room. And I would go out into the hall and stand outside the choir room. And as they were rehearsing without the aid of a piano, I would literally record the pitches that they were singing and find out what key they were singing in and what concert pitch. Then I'd do the same thing if there were people singing in the band room. I'd go down and record and keep track of all that. Then I went online and looked for anyone singing that was not using an instrument. It was just their natural singing voice. They just started singing. And I found it really fascinating that most people's pitches tend to gravitate to that lower level. And then I thought, well, no wonder we used to always go flat in choir all the time, because our voices, it's more of a strain on the voice to sing in higher pitches. So it would make sense that we wanted to bring the pitch down a little bit, because 444 is higher quite a bit than 432. And your voice is just, it feels more comfortable singing at a lower concert pitch. 432 tends to line up with many sacred numbers. 432 matches the musical frequencies of the Hebrew letters. Now, this is based on what I found, because the musical frequencies of the Hebrew letters are based on the musical harmonic series, and they line up perfectly with the 432 concert pitch. I thought, well, that's kind of odd, but I'm not going to try to second guess the research and what shows up. If you go in with an expectation, then there's problems. The 444 pitches only appear in the book of Revelation when the city of New Jerusalem is spoken about. It's the measurements of the city. All of those measurements tend to line up with 444. And I thought, that's interesting. But in addition, a few sacred numbers do appear in the 444 concert pitch. I would say 95% of the stuff I found fits in with 432. And this remaining 5% I'm talking about is in the city of Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem, and this certain sacred numbers. And again, I'm trying not to read anything into that, because I personally don't have enough research to try to guess what that means. Here's a copy of my 432 pitch chart that is modified Pythagorean temperament. I would encourage you, if you want this chart, just to take a moment and screenshot this so that it's there. And you're going to notice that the pitches, obviously the lower the frequency, the lower the pitch. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and scooch on over to the 444. You're going to notice the numbers are quite a bit higher than they are in the 432. And the ratios, the distance is still the same, because it's modified Pythagorean temperament in both. And so go ahead and screenshot that if you want it. And I'll give you a second to do that. And then I think the next one is number 3, which we'll get to next time. But I want to make a couple of comments. A lot of people have come to me asking me about A444 being the key of David. Well, I have no credible evidence of that. Nothing that I have found suggests that that is such a thing. Number one, we have to remember, we didn't have a way to measure frequencies until the 1800s. I mean, David was a long time. We're talking 4,000 years ago. And if it wasn't until the 1800s AD, what do they call it now? ACE. They've changed what we call things now. But we're talking the year, that was only 200 years ago, that they were able to come up with a way of measuring pitches. There's no way that David would have known he was singing at A444. And the closest instrument that we have to match his time was the silver lyre of Ur. It's in the British Museum. And they found a way to tune that harp on a cuneiform tablet. And that was about 500 years before David's time, if I'm guessing my math correct here. And they did all the necessary measurements and everything and figured out that that instrument would have been around the 439 concert pitch. Okay, so how do you fit that with 444? So I just asked the question, if someone has any credible evidence that the key of David really is indeed A444, I would just like you to pass it along to me and let me look at it and see if it's accurate historically, fits within the laws of music, fits within the laws of nature, and works harmoniously with everything else. That would be my job, and I'd be happy to let you know if that indeed is the case. I just don't have the answer to that question because I don't have enough information. All right, that's all on this one, and we will see you in the next one, which is the difference between A440 and A432.